Week 5 is here, Week 4 is in the books, and Gino the Gent is here to get you guys caught up and preview Week 5. Starting with Week 4 finals, we have the Argonauts, leaving no doubt, defeating the Baby Gas team in the highest scoring matchup of the weekend, 177 to 159. The Mean Machine wins a big one in the prestige matchup of the week, 136 to Patty's Twins, 118. The Gaff Attack and the United Players the Destroyers give us fireworks throughout the matchup, going from Thursday to Monday night as the Gaff defeats the United Players 152 to 146. Squad, underestimated in one of their greatest performances in years, put us up 154 to only for the Bosses 122. And Big C's Comeback Kids gets their first win of the season, beating Appease the Gods, who they knocked out of last year's Final Four. And congratulations to the Leave No Doubt Player of the Week, Ezekiel Elliott. Ezekiel Elliott was a man amongst boys against the Detroit Lions, running for 240 yards of total offense and catching a receiving touchdown and leading the Argonauts to a Leave No Doubt performance against the Baby Gas team. Leading us into our first matchup of Week 5, we have a rematch of the Final Four of last year. The past two Pantheon Cup champions squaring off against each other. The Gaff Attack taking on the Argonauts. Both teams roll in with a 3-1 record, and both teams roll in with a star-studded roster. On the Gaff Attack side, it's obviously going to be Todd Gurley, who had a pretty good game against the Minnesota Vikings, although it was an unspectacular game. That's how good Gurley is. He doesn't need to have a lot of carries or a huge role in the game for him to have a substantial impact, and it showed Wednesday night or Thursday night because the Rams threw a lot of passes. I expect them to get back to the ground a little bit more with Todd Gurley on the road, and I expect Todd Gurley to do big things there. Sony Michel, the rookie draft pick for the Gaff, is going to get the start this weekend, or excuse me, Thursday night against the Indianapolis Colts. It's going to be interesting to see how he runs. It does seem like they have a two-back system. Obviously, James White's going to catch a lot of passes, but Sony Michel's going to get the bulk of the carries with no Rex Burkhead around. So Michel should be a pretty good play. The Colts defense just gave up, I believe, 40-something points to the Houston Texans, so that's not a defense that the Patriots have any fear of. Obviously, on the other side, with the receivers, Hopkins and Schuster are pretty good plays, and they should give the Gaff something there. Brandon Cooks, one of the best receivers acquisitions of the offseason, obviously. Him going to the Rams was a huge come up for them because he's given them things Sammy Watkins couldn't have imagined giving them. That being said, the Gaff is very LA heavy, and we'll see how that works out. Now on the Argonaut side, Phillip Rivers is gonna look like he's gonna keep the job another week, though. Carson Wentz did step up and play pretty well last week. Rivers has been pretty consistent so far. He's given the Argonauts solid scoring at the quarterback position on a weekly basis, something that you need if you're going to be a contender in the PPL. We talked about Ezekiel Elliott. He finally had his coming out party of 2018 against the Detroit Lions. But Detroit has one of the worst run defenses in the league, so it's going to be interesting to see if Elliott can continue his pace. He did get a little banged up in that game, so that's going to be something worth monitoring on the Argonaut side. James Conner is just showing more and more that he's not Le'Veon Bell. Not that he's a bad player, he's a serviceable player. But Le'Veon Bell is all pro, and James Conner is a number 2 running back, and it's starting to show more and more. Julio Jones and A.J. Green both put up solid performances and should continue to do the same based on their matchups. Julio has an inviting matchup against Pittsburgh, and Green with a good matchup against the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, the big star outside of Ezekiel Elliott last week was George Kittle. Kittle had a huge 80-yard touchdown catch that was probably the deciding play in the Argonauts' victory. If they don't get that big play, that matchup changes drastically. That being said, this matchup sets up pretty well. Highest projected matchup of the weekend. Both teams were in shootouts last week, and both teams scored over 150 points last week. And that's gonna be an interesting dichotomy, because you're gonna see if the scoring is gonna be able to continue, or if both teams are gonna have a letdown after a big weekend of scoring. That being said, the matchups just set up pretty well on the Argonaut side. Jones and Connor are in plus matchups. Green has been a monster, and Elliott looks like he's finding his way. I have the Argonauts winning this matchup. 115 to 110. I think both teams slow down a little bit and the scoring's a little lower than expected. Moving on to our next matchup in the PPL, we have Only for the Boss taking on the Baby Gas team. Well, the Boss came back down to earth with that loss. Not that they didn't lose the week before to the Mean Machine, but if you're really seeing that the Chiefs coach and players is going to be a play that's going to be, I'm not going to say advantageous, but it's going to be effective all year long just based on the way the team plays. I believe they scored 70 points in that Monday night matchup, and that's the fear you have when you play the Boss, that all of those Chiefs players will stack enough for him to, really take advantage of the matchup. And that being said, this week the Jags are probably the toughest game the Chiefs have had already this season, and that's going to be a really, really, really tough obstacle for the Boss this weekend. Obviously, on the Baby Gas team side, they've got to be sure to continue to check their lineup. It bit them again with the Jack Doyle play. The tight end position was at a 0, and that played a huge role in this matchup because the BGT was the second highest scoring team of the weekend, and who knows, if they make the right tight end play, maybe they do get by. But I'm looking at guys like T.Y. Hilton. He got hurt, but Melvin Gordon has been a man amongst boys. He's done a really good job as a receiving back and a running back out of the backfield. He had a huge game against the 49ers last week, and I think that'll continue against the Raiders defense. I don't see why that would stop. Robert Woods was a huge come up for the Baby Gas team, and he's a guy that probably shouldn't leave their lineup anytime soon. Mark Ingram comes back into action for BGT. They kept this guy, so he's obviously a guy that they that they have confidence in, it, that they believe can help them out. This matchup actually does set up for the BGT. I think that they're going to get their first win. I've got the Baby Gas team winning this matchup 107-99. BGT gets off the schneid and gets his first victory of the season.